Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The observation deck of the Kestrel horizon was mostly empty at this hour, save for the distant hum of the engine and the occasional flicker of sensor readouts across the curved ceiling panels. Stars drifted beyond the glass like slow-moving fireflies caught in a storm of silence. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stepped through the pressure door without thinking, still tugging at the sleeve of his uniform. The cool air bit gently at the sweat lining his neck. He'd come up here to breathe, to be alone, but someone else had beaten him to it. She sat on the far bench, her figure silhouetted against the giant crescent of the Tesseron Nebula. The glow lit the contours of her face in pale blue, still, unmoving, eyes wide, watching, and not blinking. He paused. She hadn't moved since recovery. Not since her pod was pulled from orbit over HD 189733b. That was 3 days ago. Marcus stepped closer, slowly, quietly. He'd read her file twice, then a third time when he couldn't sleep. They hadn't even given her a real name, just a string of characters and the term probable sapient. The text called her the Echo. No one knew what her species was or how she'd survived the collapse, only that she hadn't blinked. Not once. Her body was humanoid, but subtly. Wrong, too symmetrical, skin shifting like fine dust under glass. Her hair, or what replaced it, moved in slow tendrils, alive with soft pulses of color. The rhythm of it didn't match any known breathing cycle, and those eyes, too deep, too silent. Like she was staring through the stars. He reached the side of the bench and cleared his throat gently. "Didn't mean to intrude," he said. "No reaction. I usually come here when I can't sleep." Still nothing. The silence scratched at his chest. Something about her presence, like the calm just before a hull breach. Controlled, dangerous, or just grieving. He slowly lowered himself to the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm Marcus Hale," he offered. "Lieutenant, technically, but you can just call me Marcus." No change in her posture. But now he could hear something, soft like a low-frequency hum in the air around her. Not sound, vibration, resonance. She wasn't just sitting, she was listening. Marcus licked his lips. "Do you understand me?" Her eyes, those dark fluid mirrors, shifted. Just a flick, then stilled. He chuckled quietly. "Maybe you're not interested." "That's fair." He leaned back, folding his hands. The stars stretched infinitely before them. He watched them, in silence. "I used to think space would feel free," he said after a while. "Turns out it just makes everything feel heavier." Still no answer. Just the quiet hum and the distant echo of something not quite air. "My sister used to make me promise I'd come back with star stories," he said softly. "She thought they'd be beautiful, that all this," he gestured toward the void, "was pure magic." He paused. "She didn't make it to see me off." A long silence. A breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Then, a shift. The woman slowly turned her head. Not much, just enough to face him with her full gaze. He nearly flinched. Her stare was raw, overwhelming. Like being read from the inside out. "Was she small?" she asked. Her voice was a whisper wrapped in light, like it came from a place not entirely inside her. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Your sister." Small, bright, carried light in her voice. His heart slammed against his ribs. "How do you know that?" She tilted her head slowly. "I don't. I just felt warmth. When you spoke of her," Marcus exhaled sharply. "She used to call me Captain Star. Said it made me sound braver than I was." She blinked. A single, slow blink, like a shutter catching starlight. He stared. "You just—" "I forgot how," she murmured. Another pause. Something tender passed between them, unspoken, unsure. He looked down at his hands. "I've never seen someone go so long without blinking. You just stared, like time couldn't touch you." "It did," she said. "But not like you." Her gaze lingered on him. "You keep blinking, even when you want to stop, even when it hurts." His lips parted, but no words came. She leaned forward slightly, as if listening to something beyond his voice. I watch your species speak through pain. Pretend it is nothing. Carry the fire inside your chest. Marcus let out a shaky breath. We're pretty good at that. No, she said gently. You're not, but you try. Something shifted inside him, an ache he hadn't named. I don't know what you've seen, he said carefully, or what you've lost, but you don't have to be alone out here. Her expression didn't change, but something in the air softened. I do not know how to be anything else. Marcus looked at her, really looked, beyond the alien skin and strange elegance. There was loneliness there, not cold, not cruel, just deep. He reached out, palm open, resting it gently on the edge of the bench between them. Not touching, just offering. Her gaze dropped to it, and stayed. The silence returned, but now it felt like waiting, not absence. Marcus whispered, when you're ready. She said nothing, but she blinked again, and this time her head tilted closer to his. Just a little enough. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. Here it's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. The next night, Marcus returned to the observation deck. He hadn't planned to. He told himself he was just making rounds, just checking on things. But he brought 2 cups of synth chai with him, and when he reached the door, he hesitated longer than usual before stepping in. She was already there. Same bench, same silence, same stars. But tonight, she was sitting differently. Not rigid, still, poised, as if she'd been waiting. Marcus approached with cautious ease, holding out the cup. This is probably the least terrible thing the mess hall has to offer. She glanced at it, head tilting like before. It's warm, that's the idea. He sat down beside her, placing the other cup between them. She didn't reach for it, but her eyes stayed on the rising steam. He studied her in the reflection of the glass. Do you sleep? She didn't answer at first, then softly. I remember sleep, but not how to enter it. You remember? My mind doesn't close. I float through memory fragments, echoes, images of what no longer exists. Marcus took a slow sip of the chai, letting the warmth fill his chest. Sounds like dreams, he said. No, she replied, almost too quickly. Dreams hold hope. This is residue. They fell into silence again. Marcus watched the stars. He found one he used to track as a cadet, Delta Viva, in a blue-white spark like a frozen heartbeat. He smiled faintly. My father used to say the stars are too far away to lie, he said. That's why he trusted them more than people. Do you trust them? Marcus turned his head to look at her. No, he said, but I think I trust you. She blinked. Slowly. Then she did something new. Her hand shifted, a bare movement. She mimicked his posture, legs slightly stretched, shoulder angled toward him just barely. Her fingers brushed the edge of the chai cup. Her voice was softer now. You're not afraid of me, Marcus shook his head. Should I be? You don't know what I am. No, he agreed, but I know what you aren't. You're not cruel, you're not cold, and you haven't tried to read my thoughts. Again. She glanced sideways. A faint glow traveled through the strands of her hair, a pulse that matched the rhythm of her breath. If she even had lungs. I didn't mean to that night, she whispered. I didn't know I could connect like that. I was reaching. I didn't expect someone to reach back. Marcus looked down at her hand, still hovering near the cup. You ever held a mug before? A slight pause. Then, no. He slid it gently closer. Be careful. It's hotter than it looks. She hesitated. Then slowly, very slowly, curled her fingers around it. The heat made her flinch, just a flicker of muscle memory. She didn't let go. Her hand glowed faintly where the warmth touched her. This sensation is strange, comforting, unnecessary, she said, but not unpleasant. Marcus smiled. That's kind of the definition of comfort. She watched the steam swirl, transfixed. "We didn't have this." "Your people?" "Yes." She paused again, searching for words. "We shared memory through skin, spoke through vibration. We had no need for warmth. We lived in thought." Her voice trembled, barely audible. Then the thoughts turned dark. Marcus leaned in slightly. "What happened?" Her hand tightened around the mug. The glow pulsed once, twice. Dissent, fear. One by one, minds fractured. Unity became silence. Silence became extinction. She stared down into the chai as if trying to find them again in its depths. Marcus didn't speak. He just sat closer, his presence calm, grounded, offering no solutions, only company. She breathed in the steam, then turned to him suddenly. "Why did you come back tonight?" He met her eyes. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." She didn't look away. "That's dangerous," she said quietly. "I know." A long pause. Then she said, "I don't know my name." Marcus blinked. "They didn't assign one." She shook her head. "Names are strange to me. They sound like cages." He considered that. "Then maybe don't take one, or pick one that feels like a door." She looked puzzled. "A door?" "Yeah," he said softly. "Something that opens instead of closes." Her gaze lowered again, but a tiny smile, barely visible, touched the corner of her lips. It lasted only a second, but Marcus saw it. They sat together for a while, saying nothing more. Eventually, she placed the chai cup gently on the bench. Her fingers lingered, then slowly drifted toward his. She didn't touch him, but she left her hand close enough to feel the heat from his skin. And that was enough. The days blended together in quiet fragments. Marcus found himself drawn to the observation deck more often than he could explain. Each time he saw her there, waiting, silent but not unwelcoming, her presence was always a quiet hum in his mind, like the soft pull of gravity. Tonight was no different. He stepped through the door already knowing she would be there. She was staring at the stars, her hand once again hovering just above her cup of chai, as if undecided. "Did you ever think you'd be here?" Marcus asked, settling beside her. She didn't look at him, but he could feel her attention shift. "No, me neither," he said with a quiet laugh, though it sounded empty. "Somewhere along the way I stopped asking why I'm here." "And now?" she asked, her voice a soft ripple in the quiet. "Now," Marcus sighed. "I'm not sure I know anymore. I keep thinking I'll wake up, that this is some kind of dream." "Perhaps it is," she said. "Perhaps dreams are just reflections of what you've lost." He winced, not from her words, but from their weight. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced out at the endless stretch of stars, bright, indifferent, cold. Her voice broke the silence again. "Do you think you can change what's lost?" Marcus looked at her. Her face was unreadable, but there was something vulnerable in her stillness, something that mirrored his own ache. "I used to believe it," he said, his voice quieter than he intended, "that we could change everything, rewrite the past, start fresh. Do you still believe it?" "I'm trying not to," he said, "but sometimes I think maybe that's the only thing left worth believing in." She turned her head slightly, eyes searching his face as if trying to decode him. "Is that what you wanted to believe when you left Earth?" she asked, her gaze intense. He shook his head. "No, I wanted to believe I was running from something. I thought space would give me answers. I thought it would be clean, new. But now—" He stopped, realizing how much he'd just revealed. She stayed silent, and for a long moment he let the quiet stretch out. The sound of his breath, of her subtle hum in the air, were the only things that anchored him to the present. Everything else felt distant, like his past, like his future, like the stars. He finally looked at her again, studying her face. The glow of the nebula seemed to shine just a little brighter, like it was waiting for them to speak. "I keep thinking that maybe we could change things. Not the past, but the future. Together." Her eyes flickered. "You're not afraid?" "No," he said, slowly reaching out, his hand hovering just beside hers. "Not with you." She didn't pull away, she didn't move at all. The space between them was still vast, but somehow it felt smaller than before. After a long, aching pause, she finally spoke. "You say that, but you don't know what I've lost. What I carry—" "I know loss," Marcus said, his voice rough. "I lost my family, my sister. She was everything. I don't talk about it much, but she was why I became who I am." "I'm sorry." Marcus smiled, but it was sad. "I'm not anymore." She tilted her head slightly, the quiet movement so graceful, so unfamiliar. "What do you mean?" He leaned back, looking up at the stars again. "I used to think losing her was the worst thing, that it was the end of me. But now I think it was just the beginning." There was a tremor in her voice. "The beginning?" He nodded. "Yeah, the beginning of something else, something I couldn't have imagined until now. I thought I'd lost everything, but I didn't realize what was waiting for me." Her breath caught, but she didn't speak. Instead, she reached for the cup he had placed between them. Her fingers brushed against his as she took it, and for a fleeting moment he felt the warmth from her hand travel through his skin. Her fingers tightened around the cup. I can't understand why you want to stay," Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Because sometimes it's not about understanding. It's about choosing to stay." She turned her gaze to him, her eyes dark and unreadable. "But you don't know me. You don't know what I am." He shook his head. "Does it matter?" Her lips parted slightly, as if she were about to speak, but she faltered. He pressed on gently. "I think sometimes it's not about the things we know, it's about the things we feel." She let out a soft breath, her expression softening just a little. For the first time, she turned fully toward him. "Feel." He nodded. "Yeah. Feel. Sometimes you have to let yourself feel the things you can't explain." Her hand, still, holding the chai cup, shifted closer to his again, this time intentionally. She rested it just next to his. And though they didn't touch, the proximity of it, close enough to feel the heat, the subtle pulse of her presence, was enough. "I feel that," she said softly. "I know," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. "I do too." The space between them was still there, but it felt smaller now, more intimate, less like the endless stars above them, and more like the quiet between two hearts, waiting. The following days seemed to stretch into eternity. Marcus couldn't explain why, but the hours spent on the observation deck with her felt like they could last forever. Each evening she was there, waiting, always. Each time he came to sit with her, the silence felt less like an absence and more like a space. They were sharing. Tonight the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with anticipation. Marcus sat beside her, but this time the usual sense of distance between them felt different. There was something shifting in the air, like a current neither of them could ignore. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked, her voice steady but with a subtle edge of curiosity. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd been caught staring at her again, but it wasn't just her, it was everything. The way the soft glow of the stars framed her face, the way her presence felt like the universe was holding its breath around her. "I don't know," he said, his voice quieter than before. "Maybe because you make me forget." She tilted her head. "Forget what?" "Everything else." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. His words hung in the air, unspoken truths between them. She turned her eyes back to the stars, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't seeing them. Not really. She spoke again, her voice distant. "I told you I don't remember who I was." "You don't have to." She shifted, the faintest hint of discomfort flickering in her eyes. "I have no name. No past. Just fragments. It's as if I was never meant to be." "That's not true." Marcus reached out, his hand just grazing her sleeve. He didn't pull away when she didn't flinch. Instead, he let his fingers linger. "You are meant to be. Right here. Right now." Her eyes met his, the intensity of her gaze almost too much to bear. And you? You think you belong here? With me? Yes, he said, with more conviction than he expected. I do. She looked away, but not out of discomfort, more like she was searching for something in the dark expanse of space. Her hand twitched at her side, then slowly, almost without thinking, she placed it next to his. The warmth from her fingers radiated through him. I don't know how to be with you, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus felt his heart beat faster, but he didn't pull away. You don't have to know, I don't either. She looked back at him, her lips slightly parted as if she was trying to say something she didn't understand herself. We're both lost, he murmured. In different ways. Her gaze softened. I don't want to be lost anymore. You're not, Marcus said gently, his thumb brushing against the back of her hand. Not with me. The words came so naturally, but they held so much weight. For a moment they sat there, the quiet stretching on, with nothing more to say. The stars outside shimmered brightly, but to Marcus, they seemed dim in comparison to Oi, the depth of what was unfolding between them. I don't know what happens next, she said suddenly, breaking the silence. Me neither, Marcus replied. But I know. I don't want to go forward without you. Her gaze flickered, and he saw something in her eyes that made his heart skip, a mixture of hope and hesitation, a spark that might have been a smile if she had allowed herself to. I think, she started, her voice low, I think I might want the same. Marcus felt the air between them change again. It wasn't just the words, it was the way they were finally, truly understanding each other. In the quiet moments, in the spaces they didn't need to fill with words, there was a connection that neither of them had ever expected to find. It was fragile, delicate, and yet so strong. He didn't want to ruin it with more talk, so he simply leaned in, just enough that their foreheads touched. She didn't pull away. For the first time, he felt her breath against his skin, soft and steady. There was no urgency, no rush. Just the quiet reassurance of two people who had found something worth holding on to. I don't want to let go, he whispered. I won't make you, she replied. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full. Full of possibilities, full of promise. They stayed there for a while, letting the moment settle around them. In the distance, the stars continued to burn. But in that small, quiet corner of the universe, all that mattered was the space between them and how it felt to fill it together. The days blurred into nights, each one a quiet promise that something was shifting between them. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so connected to someone. Even the stars, those cold, distant points of light, seemed warmer now. But there was an undercurrent to their connection, an unspoken tension that Marcus could feel but couldn't quite define. Each time they spoke, each time they shared a moment, there was something more, something they hadn't acknowledged yet. Tonight, as usual, he made his way to the observation deck, but this time he hesitated before stepping inside. Her presence was always there, silent, watching, waiting, but tonight felt different. The air was heavier, thick with something he couldn't place. When he entered, she was already there, standing by the glass. Her back was to him, her hands clenched at her sides. Something was wrong. You're here, she said, her voice quieter than usual. Marcus paused. There was a rawness in her tone, something unsettled. Are you okay? I don't know, she replied. I'm afraid. He stepped closer, his heart rate quickening. Afraid of what? She turned slowly to face him, her eyes, dark, filled with something he couldn't name. I can feel it, the pull, the reason I'm here. I don't belong here, Marcus, I shouldn't be. What are you talking about? He moved closer, his voice soft but insistent. You do belong. Here you're… No, she cut him off, stepping back. You don't understand. I'm not like you, I can't be here, I'm broken. The words hit him like a punch and he stopped in his tracks. What do you mean, broken? I was made this way, she said, her voice trembling. I'm not real. Not like you, I'm a creation. I was made to be something I'm not, and I don't know how to fix it. Marcus stepped forward again, slowly this time, carefully, as if approaching something fragile. That's not true. You're real. You're more real than anyone I've met. She shook her head, her eyes full of anguish. I'm not. I can feel the emptiness inside me. It's why I can't stay. Why I shouldn't. Stay. You'll see it too. Eventually, the weight of her words crushed him. He didn't know how to respond. He reached for her, his hand hovering in the space between them, uncertain. But he couldn't let her slip away again. Not now. Not when they had finally found something worth holding on to. "You're not broken," he said firmly. "You're not a mistake. You're here." His voice cracked slightly as he stepped closer, his hand finally finding hers. "And that means everything." Her breath hitched, her body trembling under the pressure of his words. "I don't know how to believe that. You don't have to believe it yet. Just let me show you." He squeezed her hand gently, the connection between them grounding him in the moment. "I'll be here. You're not alone in this." Her eyes searched his face, as if looking for any hint of doubt, any sign that he might be lying. But all she found was truth. She leaned into him, ever so slightly. The faintest touch of her forehead against his, a quiet gesture that said more than words ever could. But then, without warning, the lights in the observation deck flickered. The quiet hum of the ship's engine seemed to shudder. She pulled away, sharply, her eyes widening. No, not now." "What's happening?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with concern. I can feel it." She looked out the window, her face pale. "Something's coming. I wasn't supposed to stay this long." Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "What do you mean? What's coming?" Before she could answer, the ship's alert system blared, a shrill, frantic sound that sent a wave of tension through the room. "Emergency! All personnel to their stations!" The voice crackled through the speaker. Her eyes widened in panic. "It's them! They found me!" Marcus grabbed her arm. "We need to get to the control room, now!" "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. If they find me—" "You're coming with me," he said firmly, pulling her towards the door. "I won't leave you." But she resisted, her body stiffening. "You don't know what they'll do to you. If they find out you're protecting me, they'll do what they want," he said, his voice low but unyielding. "But I'm not letting you go." They stood there for a moment, eyes locked, both knowing the danger they were facing, yet neither willing to back down. Finally she nodded, just barely. "Okay," she whispered, "but we have to move quickly." Without another word, they ran down the hallway, the ship's red alert lights flashing above them. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the narrow corridors, urgent, filled with fear, but also with something else, something stronger. A bond that neither of them had ever anticipated. The control room was chaos. The sharp clang of boots on metal floors, the frantic shouting of officers trying to respond to the ship's emergency alerts. It all blended into a single, overwhelming sound. Marcus didn't care about any of it. His focus was on her, on the alien woman by his side, her hand tightly gripping his as they pushed their way through the madness. "You need to stay back," one of the officers shouted, but Marcus ignored him, tugging her with him toward the central console. "No," she cried, her voice strained, almost breaking. "They're going to destroy it all. Because of me." He stopped, forcing her to face him. "You have to listen to me." His voice was calm, even though his heart was pounding. "I don't care what they do to us. You're not going anywhere without me. We'll figure this out together." Her wide eyes searched his, searching for any sign of doubt. But there was none, only determination. Slowly her shoulders relaxed, and she gave the smallest nod. "We need to deactivate the emergency lockdown," she said, her tone a little steadier. "I can do it, but it'll trigger a ship-wide scan. And they'll know exactly where." "You are," Marcus said, his brow furrowing. "Yes." He didn't hesitate. "Do it. I trust you." She hesitated for just a second before her fingers danced over the controls. The lights flickered again, the air thick with tension. Every second felt like an eternity. The officers surrounding them were on edge, their eyes darting between Marcus and the woman, their hands hovering over their weapons. "Deactivating," she murmured, her voice barely audible. A soft hum filled the room as the system powered down. Marcus held his breath, his hand still gripping hers. It was quiet, too quiet. He could feel her heartbeat against his palm, frantic and erratic. Then the scan began. A low, mechanical voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Initiating full identification search. All sectors, scan in progress. Her hand trembled in his. "They're going to find me," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Marcus's mind raced. There had to be another way. Some escape, some plan that would give them more time. But the truth was, he didn't know if they had time. He didn't know if they'd survive this. "I won't leave you," he said again, his voice steady even as his heart fought to keep up with the chaos. The woman's eyes flickered with something he couldn't quite place. Fear, yes, but something else too. Maybe it was hope, or acceptance, or both. "We don't have to survive this," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I need you to know I've never felt this before, not in the way I feel it now." The words sank into Marcus's chest, heavy and pure. He wanted to say something in return, to tell her that he felt the same, that he was afraid of losing her, that he couldn't imagine life without her now, but he couldn't find the words. Instead, he squeezed her hand, the only promise he could offer. Then a sharp mechanical sound broke the silence, the sound of the ship's scanners locking in on a signal. I've been detected," she said, her voice distant now. "Resigned. No." Marcus didn't let go. "We have to go. Now." But she didn't move. A blast of energy surged from the control panel, a jarring reminder that time was running out. The door behind them slid open with a hiss, and officers flooded. "In, weapons drawn. You're under arrest," one of them shouted, stepping forward with authority. Marcus stepped in front of her, his body a shield between her and the rest of the world. "No," he said, his voice unwavering. "You're not taking her." The officer hesitated, eyes flicking, between Marcus and the woman, but he didn't lower his weapon. "Step aside, soldier. You're interfering with an intergalactic security matter." "I don't care," Marcus growled, his voice low and dangerous. "She's not going anywhere, and neither am I." For a moment, the room was still. A tense standoff, both sides waiting for the other to make a move, and then the woman's voice cut through the tension, soft but firm. "You can't protect me forever," she said, stepping past Marcus. "It's over." "No," Marcus whispered, a sharp pang of heartbreak shooting through him. "It's not over." She turned to him, her eyes filled with an unreadable expression. "It is for me. I'm not who you think I am. I can't stay here anymore. I've never belonged anywhere." Before Marcus could say anything, she stepped back, her fingers trembling as she reached toward the control panel once again. But this time, it wasn't to deactivate a lockdown. This time, it was something far more final. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." With a swift motion, she pressed the final key. The ship shook violently, an explosion of light flooding the room. For a split second, Marcus thought the universe itself had exploded around them. His heart dropped, his mind racing. But then the lights flickered back on. The tension, the chaos, the ship. It all seemed to pause for a heartbeat. The woman was gone. The room was empty, save for Marcus. Silence swallowed him whole. If this story moved you, share it with someone who loves powerful tales from distant worlds. Don't forget to like, and let us know in the comments, what would you have done?